Hello students, I think you are doing well and you are following my channel regularly. Today I am going to represent before you with a new topic of biology, that is plant movement, and which is included under the control and coordination chapter. You may have noticed that every organism moves their body parts at some extent. Just like animals can move their body parts and also move from one place to another. That is called the locomotion. That means when they only move their body parts, that is called the movement. But when they move from one place to another, that is called the locomotion. And this locomotion occurs with the help of some legs, the help of their some appendages like legs, wings, hands, pseudopodia, flagella, and wings, tentacles, CT, feet, anything. So they have some particular organs to move from one place to another. But in case of plants, you have noticed that in case of plants, we see only the movement of its body parts. That means only the movement of its body parts, because plants do not have any nervous system or sense organ like ear, nose, eyes, or brain. But still, they can sense the external changes, and they can sense the outside changes by the action of some specific hormones, and now what are the hormones? Hormones are actually some chemical molecules secreted within the plant body, and every hormones have some specific functions. And movement in plant parts actually the growth in its different region, like the root, stem, flower, leaf, and formation of tendrils, because they don't have any specific sense organs, but also they can respond to the stimuli or environmental changes by the action of some hormones. And also through these hormones they can coordinate their behavior with the different changes in the environment. But the response of the plant towards the various external changes is very slow, and it is shown by the growth of its body parts. Now I will discuss about the stimuli and response. If you have noticed that plant cannot move from one place to another, but they can move their body parts through by the form of growth, but the whole plant body cannot move and in its own. And how do they do this growth? That means how do they grow, and what are the external forces, and where do the external forces come from? These external agents come from the environment. From the environment, there are some external agents come, and these are actually the heat, cold, touch, temperature, gravity, pressure, atmospheric pressure, etc. And these external forces are called the stimuli. And it is in the plural form, and in the singular form it is called the stimulus. And when any organism react to the behavioral changes of stimulus, that is called the response. That means when they react, when they do some body change, when they do some changes, that are called the response. And the ability of an organism to respond to external stimuli, that is called the sensitivity. These are called the sensitivity. Just like what are the stimuli and what are the response, just I give you some examples. Suppose you are going you are walking on your bare feet, and suddenly in the path you accidentally put your bare feet on a sharp object. So what will you do? You quickly remove your feet. That means when you put your feet on a sharp object, you quickly remove your feet because you feel pain. That is, here the sharp object act as a stimulus, and the removal of our feet is called the response. And also, when we touch a very hot object, we quickly remove our body parts. It is also here the hot object act as a stimulus, and we remove our body parts. That is called the response. And when any bright light, suppose any bright light suddenly falls on our eyes, so quickly you notice that you quickly close your eyes. That means here the light act as a stimulus, and closing of your eyes, that is the response. And now come to the types of plant movement. There are actually two types of plant movement. One is called the tropic movement or tropism, and another is called the nastic movement or nastism. Now, what is the tropic movement? Tropic movement is the movement of plant parts. When the movement of plant parts occur in response to external stimulus. External, that is, stimulus comes from outside of its body, in which the response depends on the direction of the stimulus. That means from which direction the response is coming, the stimulus is coming, the response occurs according to that. That is called the tropic movement. And what are the different types of tropic movement? That is phototropism, when the stimulus is light, and another is the geotropism, when the stimulus is gravity, and another is the hydrotropism, when the stimulus is water, and when the stimulus is chemical, that is called the chemotropism, and when the stimulus is touch, it is called thigmotropism, and the stimulus is temperature, means thermotropism. Now come to the phototropism. What do you mean by the phototropism? Here in the picture you can see that the movement, that there is a small sapling in the top, and the root bends away from the light, and the shoot parts grow towards the light. That means the light comes from outside, the sunlight comes from the window, and the shoot part, that is stem and leaves and flowers, that bend towards the light, and the roots bend away from the light. That means this is the phototropism. That means tropic movement according to the light. Photo means light, tropism means that is the tropic movement. But here the light comes from above, and so the roots grow downwards, that is grow straight and downwards. This is called the phototropism. Now come to the geotropism. What do you mean by the geotropism? That is the movement of plant parts when the movement occurs according to the response of gravitational force. That means gravitational force comes from the core of the earth. It comes from the earth. So you can see that the roots grow towards the earth. That means straight towards the earth. But when the top is bent, then also the roots grow towards the earth. That means the roots grow downwards, and also this shoot part grow to upwards. So this is the geotropic movement or geotropism. Now next is the hydrotropism. What do you mean by the hydrotropism? Here in the diagram you can see that in the whole diagram there are the two parts. In the left side part you can see there is a small plant is grown, and here is also the same plant, but here the whole soil is moist, but here the left side soil is dry, and right side soil is moist, because here is some amount of water. So you can see in the left side figure the roots grow straight, but in the right side figure there is the dry soil, and here is the moist soil. So roots grow right hand side because of the water, because they need water, and the roots absorb water from the right hand side soil, because left side soil is dry totally. So the movement of roots towards the water, that is called the, so movement of any plant parts towards water is called the hydrotropic movement. So roots are called the roots here. Roots are the positively hydrotropic. That means from which direction water is coming, roots are growing towards that direction. So that is called the hydrotropic movement or hydrotropism. Now come to the chemotropism. What do you mean by the chemotropism? Chemotropism, what is the chemotropism? That means the response of a plant part towards a chemical stimulus is known as the chemotropism. Here you can see that is a ovary. This is the structure of an ovary, and within the ovary there is a ovule, and this is the pollen is here. The pollen grains is here, and this pollen forms a tube-like structure. But why it forms a tube-like structure? Because when the pollen falls here, there is a sugary substance is released from the ovule, and because of this sugary substance it acts as a chemical. Sugar means it is a chemical. Because of this chemical, the pollen makes a tube-like structure. Pollen tube grows and it reaches to the to the ovule. That means because of some chemical there is the movement occurs. So what is the chemotropism? The response of a plant part towards a chemical stimulus. Any chemical stimulus, that is called the chemotropism. And also some examples are there. Sometimes roots grow away from the harmful acids in soil. That means within the soil there are some harmful acids, and roots always grow away. Roots want to grow away from this soil because these acids are very harmful for the roots. So this is also the negative chemotropism, not positive. That means the roots grow away from this. So it is the negative chemotropism. And sometimes the roots growing towards the useful minerals, because within the soil there are so many useful minerals, and the plant requires minerals for their growth. So in which portion of the soil there are the minerals, roots always grow towards that area of the soil, and that is called the positive chemotropism. Here it grows away from the harmful acids, so it was called the negative chemotropism. But when it grows towards the minerals, that is called the positive chemotropism. Now what is the thigmotropism? The directional movement of a plant part in response to touch of an object is known as the thigmotropic movement. That means when we touch any plant part, there is some changes that is the called the thigmotropism. So what are the examples of thigmotropism? In this picture you can see that some plants are there are some plants, these are very weak stem. These plants have very weak stems, just like pumpkin, bitter gourd, grapes, passion flower, bottle gourd. These have some very weak plants. That means they cannot stand straight. So during their growth they need some object to stand straight. But how they will stand straight? These plants produce some thread-like structure, coil structure at the end of the stem or leaves called tendrils. And tendrils may be stem tendrils or leaf tendrils. And these tendrils are very sensitive to touch or contact of other objects, because when the tendrils touches, just you see that the tendrils touch a straight object, it coils around this object so that it can grow properly. So this is one type of example of thigmotropism, and it gets a support to stand straight. Now what is the nastic movement? What is the nastic movement? Means the movement of any plant part in response to an external stimulus in which the direction of response is not determined by the direction of the stimulus. That means response is not dependent on the direction of stimulus. That means the response is dependent on only the stimulus but not the direction. The response does not occur according to the direction. So what is the main difference between tropic movement and nastic movement? That is, tropic movement is one type of directional movement, but in case of nastic it is not the directional movement. And tropic movement is always a growth movement, but nastic movement may be a growth movement or may not be a growth movement. Now come to the point. First nastic movement is the thigmonasty. I think you have noticed, all of you have seen the chuimui plant, that is the touch me not. It is also called the touch me not, and its scientific name, scientific name of this plant is Mimosa pudica. And you may have noticed that this plant has some peculiar features. When we touch this leaflet, you can see that there is a finger. When we touch these leaflets, this is small leaves are called the leaflets. When we touch the leaflets, these leaflets droop down immediately. But do you think why does it happen? And what is the reason behind it? Why does it droop down? Just it falls down or droop down because these plants are very sensitive to touch. And here the stimulus is the touch. The stimulus is actually the touch. So this plant is sensitive to touch, and the leaflets of these plants, by our finger, if we touch the leaflets by our finger, they droop immediately. But after 15 to 30 minutes, they come back to their original condition. So what happens? What happens within this plant? You can see that there is a enlarged figure of these leaves, and these plants have some pad-like swellings at the base of the leaf, and this portion is called, the pad-like swelling is called the pulvinus, and this is the actual leaf. And this pulvinus have a lot of water content. This pulvinus contains a lot of water, and due to this water pressure or turgor pressure, the pulvinus remain firm or swollen, and so that the leaf become erect. But when we touch the leaflets, when we touch the leaves, then an electrical impulse from our body, an electrical impulse is generated, and this electrical impulse travels through the ordinary cells. From this leaf cells, it goes to the pulvinus. It reaches to the pulvinus, and the water content of this pulvinus come out from the pulvinus, and so that does not become swollen, and it droops down. It loses its firmness and causes the leaves to fold, and the leaves fold, and for 15 to 30 minutes it becomes folded, and after 15 to 30 minutes, water usually diffuses back to the same cells of the pulvinus, and the leaf returns to its original condition. Now what do you mean by thermonasty? This type of movement in plant occurs due to the change in temperature, and just like flowers open with the rise in temperature and closes with the decrease in temperature, and it is also associated with photonastic movement. And what is the photonasty? You know, photonasty. Photo means that is the light. Photo word is related to light, because light have some particles that is called the photon particles. So photo word is related to light. So it is a non-directional movement of plant part in response to the intensity. Intensity means the amount of light. It depends on the intensity of light, and here the stimulus is actually the light. Just like the petals of dandelion flower blooms in the morning and closes in the evening when light becomes fade. And the moonflower, also another flower is called the moonflower. Just it behaves just opposite to the dandelion flower in response to light, because the petals of moonflower close during the bright light. That means during the daytime the petals remain closed, and during the dim light, that means when in the evening time, the petals opens up in the evening time. So according the blooming of the flower depends on the intensity of light, and this type of movement in plant is called the photonestic movement. So students, thank you so much. I think you can understand my topic and study material, and you enjoyed my video. So if you enjoyed, then give a thumbs up and subscribe my channel. So thank you so much.